Hi, I'm Barry Ostrowski. At RWJ Barnabas Health, we believe that everyone needs to be informed about the important healthcare issues affecting their lives. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Question is, can we make college more affordable? That's what we'll ask next on Caucus New Jersey.
Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Delta Dental of New Jersey. Everyone deserves a healthy smile. JAG Physical Therapy, TD Bank, NJM Insurance Group. Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. And by Verizon. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey.
Welcome to Caucus. I'm Steve Adubato. You know, higher education is still one of the best investments a person can make to build a better future. But it's not always an investment that is easily affordable. Here to discuss ways we can make college more affordable. In New Jersey, we have our good friend back again, Dr. Nancy Blattner, who is president of Caldwell University. Also back, you were here a few months ago. Glad to have you back. Dr. Houshmand, president of Rowan University. Dr. Tim Haresign is president of the Council of New Jersey State College Locals and associate professor of biology at Stockton University. And finally, Giancarlo Tello, New Jersey College Affordability Study Commission student representative. We'll talk about that commission in a second. Let me just disclose before we get this out of the way, I will be teaching at Rowan in the fall semester, and I have also taught at Caldwell. It's not like I've taught at every university. I just want to get that out of the way. Let's talk about this. College affordability. How difficult is it, doctor, for most students to afford college?
I think it's difficult, but it's doable if there's planning that goes into it. And it's planning that really has to start for the student and his or her family long before they ever start thinking about which college they want to go to. So one of the commission's findings was really that there needs to be more energy and time put into financial literacy training and conversation with students and with their families. And maybe even starting as early as middle school, if you can believe that, but definitely by high school, so that students are well aware of the types of aid and what it means to them when they sign on to take a loan or get a grant, and what's going to be expected after they graduate.
Real quick, what is this commission and what was it? Why does it matter?
Sure. Well, the commission was commissioned by the governor. It was a 10-member panel, and it was representatives, as you can see from the four of us, of public and private, 2-year and 4-year, as well as faculty organizations and students. We were so glad to have Giancarlo.
Yes.
Yes. And we came,
student end, right?
We came together for 18 months, monthly, and issued a report after we heard from many different constituencies, including people from the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, EOF, the New Jersey Counselors Groups. We met throughout the state to allow that the public could come to us in one of our settings so that we could hear from affected students and their family members about the affordability of college.
Dr. Houshmand, we've talked offline about this a lot. You're concerned about it, as are most people in higher ed. How do you deal with it at Rowan?
Well, there are a number of ways to do that. We are institutions, public institutions. We are very much dependent on two sources of revenue. One is the state appropriation, the other one is tuition and fees. It turns out that the state appropriation is getting reduced year after year for all sorts of reasons that we all know, as well as the students have a harder time securing the cost of education. Middle-class families are under pressure. When you have 2 kids, you have to send 2 of them to college. Even if you send them to public institution, you're looking at somewhere between $20,000 to $25,000 per year after tax, which is a substantial investment. So trying to do that by ourselves, we need to close those 2 doors and start thinking alternative ways of revenue. And alternative ways of revenue is, number one, is public-private partnership.
What does that mean? Give us an example.
Use other people's money to build the infrastructure that otherwise the taxpayers have to pay for. Simple. It's a business. If I want to build a dorm and it's going to cost me $150 million, I've got 2 options. One is to go and borrow on behalf of the students. The other one is get a partner who is willing to invest in that and build it for me so that we can share the profit.
Hold on. College/university is a business?
Well, of course it is a business. Well, show me one individual faculty who will show up to teach for free, or one student who
Well,
shows
I know
up.
I'm not going to.
There you go.
But here's what we're saying. Being an educational institution and still running it like a business, nothing contradictory about that.
No, our business this is simple. Our business is a business of creating knowledge and imparting knowledge. That's our business. But the principles of business, as far as financial transaction is concerned, is no different than a company that makes car versus a company that trains the future workforce of America. It's the same thing.
So in that spirit, let me ask, for you, Giancarlo, describe your experience. You work full-time?
Now I do.
You work full-time. Describe your experience going to college and how you dealt with the economics of it and how you're dealing with it today.
Well, my situation is a little bit unique in terms of that I didn't qualify for financial aid. I was undocumented up until last month. And before that, so I wasn't eligible for any form of aid, whether it be state or federal, and even some scholarships I couldn't apply for because for that you needed a green card to be a U.S. citizen. So all of those, I had to do what other middle income students had to do, where they couldn't get financial aid, had to be able to work for your tuition. So have been working since I was 16. I've been trying to get part-time jobs, full-time jobs, going to school part-time. I've had semesters where I only went to school for one class that semester.
Because that's all you could afford.
Exactly. And some semesters where I had to take off because I just couldn't afford it. So all of it is complicated. All of us are in very different circumstances. Some of us are fortunate to get some aid. Some of us don't get it for whatever reason, because our family makes enough income that it looks like they're wealthy, but you're trying to support 2 kids in a state like New Jersey. It's not paying off that much.
But college, I want to be clear, because the other, we're doing this a two-parter for us. We're looking at the issue of college debt in another program that will be very important for us. You do have some debt?
I have some personal debt, yes.
Okay, we'll talk about that on another show. That was a joke. The faculty side of this, talk about it.
I think I can agree with everyone here that it's becoming increasingly difficult for students. I've been at Stockton for 25 years, and not only do I teach, but I advise students. 25 years ago, they would come to my office and we'd pick their classes. Now they come into my office and I have students in every situation. And I'm part advisor for academics and also kind of a life advisor to say, all right, here's your financial situation. How many jobs are you working? That's one of the first questions I ask.
How many jobs are you working?
How many jobs are you working and what jobs are they? Down at Stockton, we have students who work at the casinos.
Because you're close to Atlantic City.
And they'll work the 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift and try and come in for 8 a.m. classes, 8:30 classes. And sometimes they're not doing well. I say, well, that's why, but they can't help it. As Giancarlo said, and I'm trying to figure out, should I tell them to take 18 credits to get done faster?
Wow.
Or should they take 9 credits, which is going to increase the amount of time? But if they take 18, they can't stop working.
Or as Giancarlo said, he took 1 course because that's all he could afford at that time, but it drags it out longer. And this is a conundrum on so many levels. Because, Doctor, you were talking, Nancy, about the other thing we were talking about before we got on the air was a way to have students finish, I don't know if it's on time, but not take 5, 6, 7 years to graduate. But sometimes when you have to take the 1 course because that's what you can afford, isn't that a...
Sure, it's very complicated, and I think there are fewer students today who are going full-time and finish in 4 years than there have ever been, because they have exactly the kinds of situation that Giancarlo just expressed. The families sometimes need the students' income from some of the jobs. Sometimes the students are working just so they can take the 2 or 3 buses and get the fare that they can to get there for transportation. And so, those are all tensions that we recognize. So in an ideal world, as you were just saying, Tim, we want students to take those 15 or 18 credits and finish within 4 years. But that's not always realistic, and we have to tailor this to what the students' capabilities are.
Doctor, let me ask you this. There are different initiatives we're going to be talking about this, talking about different approaches to potentially finding ways to make college more affordable. By the way, log on to our website. A lot of resources will be made available. That is part of what we do here at Public Broadcasting, as well as our partners at FiOS and our digital platforms. Doctor, let me ask you this. What is 3 plus 1?
3 plus 1 is basically our approach, Rowan's approach, to restructure higher education as it pertains to county colleges, so that making county colleges relevant to today's needs of the society.
For example?
The fact of the matter is that 20 years ago, high school diploma was a good credential to have to start the first job. Nowadays, a baccalaureate degree is a minimum requirement. It's basically replaced the high school diploma of the. So the associate degree that is offered by county colleges, and county colleges were mostly created after Second World War to train the workforce, no longer is enough. For example, right now we are teaching a cadre of RN registered nurses who need to get BSN, Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Why? Because even though they're capable nurses and they're working in hospitals, yet their employers say, go and finish your bachelor's degree because the technology has moved so much that there are certain knowledge that you need that you do not have.
So what does 3+1 do?
3+1, basically what it does is it creates an option for people who are with low income to take 3 years of the courses from county college, where the third year is loaned to them by us.
Loaned?
Loaned to them. It doesn't belong to them. We created, our faculty creates it, give it to them. It says, you now teach it and you charge people $80 or $100 per credit, rather than us teaching it and charging them $450 per credit.
And the advantage to the student
is $25,000 for a complete degree, 4-year degree. And if you add that internship, you could almost make it free. No, that is not for everybody. There are so many people who need to go to Caldwell, who need to go to Stockton and to Rutgers and to MIT and all of that. They are all relevant and important. But when we look at the workforce of America, when you want an auto mechanic, when you need a physician assistant, these people now need a baccalaureate degree. So you can create the 3+1 degree program through county colleges. There are infrastructure there, and create access significantly and make the affordability possible.
Jump in.
So I had some concerns with 3+1, and my concern is that the first 2 years of college are preparation for the major. You take some introductory courses, you take some courses on improving skills in writing and communication, and then the final 2 years are a very carefully planned dive deep into the major, into the curriculum of the major. That content has to be coordinated very carefully with the faculty. And the faculty spend a lot of their time doing this on an ongoing basis. If you start to have students take half that final 2 years at a different institution, the students who are doing that lose a lot, in my opinion.
Are you concerned about the quality of instruction there?
I'm concerned, yeah, in a way I am. And my concern is when you're dealing with different populations of students. I've taught at a number of different institutions. And at each institution, I have to teach to the population of students I have. A community college has open enrollment. So your teaching style is going to be different at a community college than it is at a 4-year institution.
Is it?
Yes.
But here's the question. I don't want to make this whole discussion about this, but this is one way to talk about college affordability. Before we go to this break, my question is this. For certain students, in certain professions, nursing being one of them, could this not make sense?
Maybe in some very selected degrees, it might make sense. But that would have to be done very carefully. And I'm worried about the level of coordination that's taking place, because you've got a situation where you're going to have faculty who are at 4-year colleges who are essentially supposed to be supervising faculty at community colleges, which neither party wants to do.
Okay, real quick, you on this?
I actually personally was in favor of 3+1. I went to community college for 3 years, and I did my then 5 years.
I'm sorry for interrupting. You did the 3 years at community college.
No, I did 3 years just because it took me a little bit longer because I was paying it on my own. But I mean, I didn't feel any difference of quality personally as a student between my faculty members, both at my community college or my 4-year institution. Most of the times they were the same faculty. I had professors teaching me from Stockton University, from Rutgers, from Montclair. It was the same faculty, essentially the same course. And for me personally, through my experience at Bergen Community College, it felt like I could do my 3rd year there, and it wouldn't have taken me 8 years to get my bachelor's degree if I could have paid that rate.
Everyone is different. We appreciate your concerns. We appreciate the idea that it's a recommendation. But that's the idea of having a recommendation. Not everyone agrees to it. Why don't we do this? We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about more ways to make college more affordable. By the way, for everyone watching right now, and I don't mean just students, parents who are involved as well in this, this is one of the most important conversations we've ever had because it affects all of you. We'll be right back after this.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, Ph.D. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking about affordability of a college. Doctor, let me ask you this, Dr. Blattner. A couple of other recommendations from the commission that looked at affordability in higher ed. Go back to the financial literacy part. You mentioned it, but what does it really mean?
I think one of the underlying themes that we heard whenever people from the public addressed the commission at our meetings, students, their parents, their grandparents, they came and they said, we didn't understand what we were signing up for. There's a lot of...
But they signed.
They did sign, but there was a misunderstanding, for example, between a loan and a grant. There was a misunderstanding between unsubsidized and subsidized loans as to when the interest, for example, begins to accrue, if it's day one or if it's deferred until after the student graduates, and those are huge differences. And so students and their family members really need to have an opportunity to talk about what this means and what the payback schedule will be and how much. And I think it's even more important, Steve, because right now all of us, I think, are experiencing just a new level of students who are coming to the institutions that come from families where they're the first in their generation.
Sure.
And that's the difference, that, you know, parents who've gone to college have more of a vocabulary about these things. They have more of an understanding. They've navigated it themselves. But many of our students at Caldwell, for example, are first generation. Many of them come from families where English is not the language spoken in the home, which adds a different layer of complexity and difficulty.
Assume.
We cannot assume. We really need to begin the conversation when the students are younger.
Real quick, Doctor, reverse
Articulation.
transfer agreements, real quick, 30 seconds on that.
Colleges. It allows a student who leaves a community college and goes to a four-year institution such as Rowan or such as Caldwell without achieving an associate's degree. And they can come to us, and there may be 9 credits, 12 credits short, and we work with the community college to ensure that they complete those credits. And then the community college is allowed to graduate that student, and it benefits everyone because the community college then is allowed to count that student as a graduating student because if he or she graduates from Caldwell, it doesn't help the community college. Right. It gives the student a credential, so that's critically important because the student then has at least the 2-year degree. Whether he graduates from your institution or mine, there's still a credential. And thirdly, it helps, I think, the 4-year institution because it allows us to provide a seamless opportunity for the students and to draw from those schools into our system so that we have feeders.
This is interesting on a human, personal level. I'm curious about this. I'm going to ask both of you this. As a student who had to deal with affordability, I guess is the Italian or universal expression for money, how much pressure did this put on you on a personal human level?
Well, I mean, I like you said, every situation is unique. Mine, my family couldn't afford so much. I couldn't be.
Were you the first?
Yes, I was the first to obtain a bachelor's degree in my nuclear family.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And as Dr. Blattner mentioned, now I can take my little sister out on tours of different campuses like Rowan, Caldwell, Rutgers, and say like, hey, this is what you can do there. This is, you know, how much it would cost. These are the majors. But on a personal level, all of this was difficult because you don't know what your schedule is going to look like. I was working random jobs. I was working at Cheesecake Factory, Dunkin' Donuts, what have you. And for me personally, at least, having any sort of degree or credential allowed me to put it on a resume, allowed me to get ahead of the pack when I'm going in for interviews.
It was worth the struggle.
Yes, yes, it was.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tim mentioned that he counsels. Mm-hmm. You know, people underestimate what faculty members really do. Mm-hmm. Ali, I know you're pretty hands-on. Doctor, what have you seen in terms of the struggle that some of the students face when it comes to figuring out how they're going to pay and balancing their academic responsibilities?
It's tremendous. It really is. I'm the first person in my family out of 10 children who got a degree.
You're the first?
And I paid for all of it myself. I worked. I used to...
The entire time?
The entire time. I used to wash dishes in the restaurant at 4 in the morning and collect 55 cents. I used to fry Kentucky Fried Chicken for 50 cents an hour in England.
Wow.
And I paid for the entire education. And it is a huge struggle because at the time where people can afford less to pay for education, it's becoming harder and harder where the need is more and more. And I wanted to go back, if you don't mind, to a couple of conversations in the past. One was the issue of the students who are unprepared or low-income people. Right now, if you really look at the way that education is done in this country, low-income people are subsidizing high-income students in this country. Because it turns out that low-income students take longer to graduate. because they have to work, and therefore they have to go for 6 years and pay 6 years of tuition. A kid with high income has no need to go to work, can easily stick with the student education, 4 years finish. So the 6-year kid is subsidizing the 4-year kid today.
Doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't feel so, but it's happening.
Why are we not talking about that, Doctor, in a public and very honest way?
There are more than 50 million Americans right now out there who went to college one time or another, never finished.
Never finished.
Never finished. And that's the problem. The problem is because we are looking at a higher education that was created during the agrarian age and nothing much has changed. Tim just mentioned that he said the 3rd and 4th year has to be done with a certain faculty. I'm saying that who is it to say that today every degree should be exactly 4 years? Yeah. Who is it to say that every semester has to be exactly 15 weeks? Why is it why is it that a philosopher needs 4 years of training versus an engineer versus a historian?
Where does this come from, Doctor?
200 years ago, the agrarian system of higher education was created, and not a single thing has changed since then. People say they changed, it hasn't. And we are trying to change it. I'm trying to disrupt it.
Yes, you are. By the way, check out the front page story with our partners at NJ Biz about disruption.
Yes.
That's being caused. Not in a bad way, in an interesting way. But I also want to go back to something before I go back to Tim. You're the first.
I am the first.
I happen to know a little bit about your background. Mm-hmm. How'd you do it?
Well, it was difficult, and I have parents who have only an 8th grade education, and I was an only child born late in life. And
Not from New Jersey, by the way.
From Missouri. Wonderful family, great values, hardworking.
She's very trusting, I know.
And I had a scholarship to Washington University, and I had a scholarship to the local public institution, and my father sat me down, and this is where financial literacy really would have come in handy because we didn't have anyone to talk to. It was a different time. And he said, honey, if you stay and live at the house and go to the public school, you know, if you lose the scholarship, Mom and I can help you. But if you go to WashU, which was 100 miles away, and of course I would have had to live in a residence hall and so forth, we can't help you because my father was a blue-collar worker. My mother stayed at home with 8th grade educations. And I'm not sorry for how my life turned out. I feel very blessed and honored to be the president of Caldwell University and to engage with wonderful students. But I think my life might have been very different early on if someone had spoken to me about the reality of financial literacy, and my parents and I didn't have the benefit of that. So I'm a product of someone who was uninformed, and yet it turned out okay.
Fascinating stories. And Tim, let me ask you, you talked about counseling, helping. Mm-hmm. How much of that counseling, which does not have to do with your area of expertise, which is in fact in biology, how much of it is about dollars and cents?
Quite a bit, quite a bit. And not only that, but I've had to learn the ins and outs of the rules for various loans. For example,
government, federal and state?
Yeah, because students who drop below a certain number of credits will be liable for starting to pay back their loans almost immediately if they drop below certain credits. They have to check their scholarships every semester to find out how many credits you need. So as we're figuring this all out, we're trying to figure out the rules of the loan. So I'm on the phone a lot because I don't have expertise in all these things. So I'll pick up the phone and call the financial aid office where we have very good people. But the students sometimes don't know. I should go over there, or they're just overwhelmed because they've got to figure out, they've got a loan, they've got a loan provider, they've got a grant, that's a different set of rules, and they've got tuition.
Tim, let me ask you something. Dr. Houshmand, who is a disruptor because he raises a whole range of issues that people either want to talk about or don't want to talk about, but he did mention clearly that the paradigm, the model in higher education in terms of the number of credits expected, the period of time, 4 years, 15 credit, whatever it is, hasn't changed. Do you have a problem with that?
I'm not opposed to talking about anything. I will tell you that teaching.
But is there a problem with saying that's the way it was 200 years ago? There was an agrarian society, as you said. That's why summers are summers, and you know, people working on farms. I believe that's what you really meant. Ain't that world so much for so many anymore? Should we have an honest discussion about a totally different model?
We should, but we also have to keep in mind the amount of information that we have to teach. The amount of knowledge is growing exponentially. You know, in the sciences, there's no teaching the same thing year to year. Well,
you're changing. Faculty members are changing. Why wouldn't, respectfully, the model of how school academic situations in higher ed are set up, which has a direct correlation to affordability?
It does. If you want to be a pilot, F-35 pilot, do you take the same amount of time to train than a truck driver?
Of course not.
So why is it an engineer and a historian should take exactly 4 years?
Yeah, what?
And I'm not saying that. Maybe NJ should take 6 years. I'm not saying everyone
You're
should
saying
do
put it
June.
on the table and talk
Put it on
about
the table
it.
and talk about it.
Are most faculty members prepared to have that conversation?
I think certainly faculty members are always open to these conversations, and we would like these conversations to be in partnership with the administration.
Of course, absolutely.
That's a sort of fundamental
Yes.
tenet of faculty governance.
Real quick, on the commission end, did the commission ask enough of state government in terms of direct dollars to higher ed?
I think we were operating under the assumption that there really wasn't any additional money, to be honest. And so even though we all knew some additional money would cure some of the problems, and I will be the first to say, I think we're all very appreciative that there's $5 million additional
That's
money
right.
going into the Educational Opportunity
It wasn't going to be
Fund.
10? It wasn't going to be 20
Actually,
million?
I think when it started this year, it was going to be cut, and then it was restored, and then it was given additional money, so we're grateful.
We're going off the air, but go ahead.
But some additional money would be helpful, of course. But I also think there are things, that's the easy answer. I think there are things that we can do
We'll
and
keep talking off the
conversations
air.
that we can have, that we need to have, that will help us to come to.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by RWJ Barnabas Health, Delta Dental of New Jersey, JAG Physical Therapy, TD Bank, NJM Insurance Group, Choose New Jersey, and by Verizon. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Home to some of the world's leading food companies, New Jersey has a rich history in the food industry. Today, New Jersey has a thriving $100 billion food and agriculture sector that's growing every day. We're home to thousands of food manufacturers, research facilities, and distribution centers. Food companies benefit from our strategic location, affordable space, and talented workforce. Whether you make it, bake it, or innovate it, New Jersey is the place to be. To learn more, visit choosenj.com.